Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has set a vote for Wednesday on a $500 billion COVID financial relief measure, which he calls skinny. So how close is Washington to finalizing a coronavirus bill? Let's bring in Anita Kumar, Politico's White House correspondent and associate editor. So, all right, Anita, listen, Senator McConnell, he's offering a $500 billion coronavirus financial relief package that would provide funds to expand unemployment benefits, another round of the Paycheck Protection Program, financial aid to schools, and funding for testing and contact tracing. Now, Speaker Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, as you know, they're currently in talks. So if the two, though, don't come up with anything different, can the Speaker afford to turn down the Senate Majority Leader's current deal?
I don't think it's likely it's going to pass the House anyway, because House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has already said time and time again she's not going to be willing to go for that. This is pretty much the same bill, the same proposal they had earlier, and she's already rejected that. She says it just doesn't go far enough and it doesn't address a lot of the needs. So I think it's unlikely to get past the Senate.
So expound on some of the obstacles.
There's so many, and it changes every day. But really, the White House and the House Democrats do seem to be getting close to something. But they still disagree on some of those specific policies in the bill. So their number is getting closer. How much they're looking at spending is getting closer. But they still fundamentally disagree on how much should go to states and localities. That's been one of the biggest sticking points from the very beginning. They also disagree about liability for businesses. Should the businesses, have protections when people come in there and get coronavirus, that sort of thing. So that's been one of the biggest issues. But even if the two sides agree, and that's a big if at this point, Senate Republicans just do not want to spend that much money. They have said that from the very beginning. Senate Leader Mitch McConnell said that just recently. So I find it really hard to believe that they would change that. They feel that they would lose their base. Conservatives don't want to spend that much. They're worried about federal government spending. So it seems like that's really where the obstacle is.
I mean, they've spent a lot of money for sure, and I can understand why they are not trying to spend even more money than necessary, but people are hurting. Americans are hurting. So I don't know that there are a lot of people the ones who are hurting and who are close to losing their livelihood and don't have food on their table or maybe being put out of their homes. I don't know that they are looking at what the federal deficit is at the moment. They're looking at the deficit in their own accounts, if they even have accounts at this point. So wouldn't that be a consideration if they're looking at a base or how it's going to affect voters?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. And that's, I think, why we're seeing 2 weeks and a couple of days out from this election, both sides still sitting down and trying to negotiate. It's incredible that they're this close to an election and still trying to do this. And that's exactly what you're saying. It's this pressure that they're feeling back in their districts and their states to get something done. Some of these voters and Americans don't care if it's Democrats or Republicans. They just want Washington to do something. They're kind of sick of the whole thing. So I think they are feeling that pressure back at home, which is why we're seeing them 2 weeks out sitting down and talking. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and the Speaker are supposed to talk again tomorrow. So, we'll see if they come up with something.
Well, we hope, both of us, I'm going to speak for you right now, just for the sake of the people. I mean, we're all Americans. We don't want to see fellow Americans suffering. Let me wrap really quickly with you, Anita, because, Senator McConnell was looking to get this coronavirus stimulus light package passed and then move on to a vote to confirm Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. So, it give them a 1-2 punch that could play out in the favor of the President Trump and the Republicans on the ballot. But if that doesn't happen, if the stimulus package doesn't happen, do you think McConnell will move on to the Barrett vote? He kind of has to.
Yes, I do think so. I mean, they have been full steam ahead. It's only been a month since Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, but they are moving quickly to do this. They have the votes. They feel they have the votes, and they want that win before, the election, which is in 2 weeks. So I think both the White House and the Senate are moving really forcefully ahead on that. I think you'll see both of those votes this week.
Wow. All right. Well, maybe I'll talk to you next week, and Anita Kumar from Politico.
Sure.
Take care. Thanks.